welcome back. So today I wanted to give a little bit of an update and an overview of how I'm currently using the Quad Cortex by Neural DSP. Since I've had the Quad Cortex, there's been a few different firmware updates that have bridged the gap in the functionality where previously I would probably have struggled to use it live, but now, given the new updates that have been introduced, I now have a single preset that allows me to I can do a whole gig with this one preset. So I find that that is pretty amazing in terms of the power and flexibility of the Quad Cortex. So today I wanted to go through the preset that I've got, maybe deconstruct it a little bit, and have a look at the captures that I'm using and basically how I've got the different controllers set up to work with it. So let's start with the core tones that I've got working here. Now I've got basically 3 core tones that I use, and this would be the same regardless of the pedal that I'm using. I would use a distorted tone, an overdriven tone, and then a clean tone. And then from there I would introduce different effects, reverb, delay, modulation effects, depending on the song that's being played and what's required. Okay, so starting with the dirty sound that I've got running here, essentially when I've got the expression controller in the heel position, it is just a dry rhythm. But then as I push the pedal forward, it introduces different degrees of delay and reverb. And also more level. So that's my main distorted tone. Then I go to the overdriven tone. So again, it's purely drive in the heel position, then as I push forward, it brings in more of the effect. The really great thing about this particular capture is how dynamic it is. Depending on how I roll the volume off, or whether I really dig in or play really lightly, the dynamics of the capture is significantly different. So let's have a quick listen to that. So it's a really dynamic sound. Believe it or not, my clean tone is actually the very same neural capture, but it's just got less gain applied, saved within that particular scene. how seamlessly it goes between the clean and the overdriven tone, and because it's the same sound, it's almost like I've just really dug in, or I've given it a little bit more gain. And essentially, if I go, so this is the actual capture that I'm using. It's the Marshall JMP 1959 SL 1980, which is available on the Neural Cloud. And you can see with the clean tone here, I've got pretty much all the neural capture settings at their default, but with a little bit more treble added. And then when I switch to the overdrive, it is a little less treble, but more gain. So I've got 12 dB of gain increase in the overdriven tone. So here's the two sounds together. So that's a really flexible tone. I can go from clean to overdrive and it's fairly seamless. The distorted tone that I've got is in fact the same capture again, however I'm adding a drive pedal in front of it. So if I go to the distorted tone, you can see that I've got the Thorpe Peacekeeper drive pedal, which hits the front end of that JMP Plexi amp. So as I push forward on the expression pedal, it actually adds more gain. So in its heel down position, and as I push forward, you'll notice that the actual gain comes in slowly. So there you go, that's the three core tones that I'm utilizing. And really, the fact that it's a single capture for the actual main tone and then I'm just adding a drive is how I would probably use an amp in the real world. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the other scenes that I've got going on here. I've got a clean chorus, which is essentially the same as my core clean tone. However, I'm adding not one, but two separate choruses. And the reason I'm using two choruses is, in my opinion, the chorus in the Quad Cortex is not as lush as a lot of choruses that you would find in similar multi-effects units. So I'm utilizing basically two in parallel so that it gives me a little bit more chorus effect. In the main part of the chain here, you can see that I'm using the dual chorus, and then I'm using the vintage chorus in the parallel chain that I've got going on there. Completely dry. If I add more expression pedal, I get the same effects that are applied to the clean tone, which is delay and reverb. So that's my chorus. Now let's move on to the last clean tone that I've got here, and that's the Shimmer. Now the Shimmer reverb was introduced recently with a firmware update, and it's basically a reverb but with a really long lush decay. And it's perfect if you wanted to fill out areas similar to a keyboard pad, and that's exactly how I'm using it. I've got it set on my main clean tone, and with the expression pedal in the fully heel position, you can just hear it really subtly in the background. As I bring more of the expression pedal in, it increases the effects level, but also the length of the decay. it's a beautiful tone. Again, it's really good for just filling out sections where you would normally have, say, a keyboard. You could use it completely wet, and you know, it's just a really lush reverb. It's a really great addition to the Quad Cortex. And lastly, I've got basically 3 different modulation tones. I've got a dirty phase, which basically just gives me just a very subtle phaser. It's the same preset as the scene I've got on F, but I've just got that phase that turns on. And of course, the same reverb and delay come in as I push forward on the expression pedal. It's something that I don't utilise a lot. Songs such as the one I just played there, I would utilise it for. Then I've got, again, the same distortion tone, but this time with a flanger that turns on. So anyone who has seen the first video I did, I complained about how bad I thought the flanger was. And in a recent firmware update, they introduced a new flanger. So they've renamed the old flanger Flangerish. However, this new flanger behaves much more like what a typical flanger would sound like, which is great news. So scene C, I've got the overdrive with, again, a phaser. This time I've got a little bit more phase signal than I had in scene A. So that's the 8 tones that I've got working in different scenes throughout this preset. Let me just quickly show you the effects chain, just so you can see what's kind of turning on and off in between the different scenes. If I move out of live mode and I start with my distorted tone here, you can see that I've got the neural capture, which is the Marshall JMP 1959 SL 1980. Again, this is available on the Neural Cloud. It's a fantastically dynamic neural capture and really great for any core tone, whether it's sort of a clean on the edge of breakup or a distorted tone where you add a drive in front. And in the case of this one, I am utilising the Thorpe Peacekeeper drive pedal in front of it, and basically just gives it a nice amount of drive. Really, you could use any drive pedal in front of the JMP amp. I particularly like the smoothness of this Thorpe Peacekeeper, but it sounds equally as good with a tube screamer or a DS distortion. So let's now have a look at going to my overdrive. So you can see the JMP by itself in the overdrive tone has 12 dB of gain, whereas I've only got 9 dB of gain because I'm making up that gain with using the drive pedal itself. And as I explained before, the clean tone, again, same neural capture, it just doesn't have as much gain. And then the modulation effects that I've got running in scenes A, B and C is essentially the phaser that turns on in A and C. It's exactly the same, however C has the Thorpe Peacekeeper turn off. And then scene B is again the main distorted tone, but it turns the flanger on and off between those two scenes. One of the other features that was added to a recent firmware update is the auto engage of the wah pedal. So this is really handy because you don't have to assign a separate scene to engage the wah. You can basically, as you push forward on your expression controller, it'll turn the wah on and off automatically. And you can also set this for whammy style effects as well. If you're using the pitch block, you can actually have it so that it auto engages as well. So that's really good news. I'm utilizing the Mission Control spring-loaded aero pedal, which is really great. It behaves similar to, say, a Morley Bad Horsey or something like that, where it basically turns on. As I release my foot, it flicks back into its default off position. And of course, that wah is the same for all of the presets. So even in the clean tone, I've got the wah set up there. So that's the basics of the main tones that I'm using. The cabinet block, I'm using the same cabinet block for every single preset, and it's basically the 412 Brit 35B Alnico Cream, and it's a default cabinet within the Quad Cortex, and it's exactly the same cabinet running in every single scene within this one preset, in the same way that I would use the same cabinet if I was performing live. Now, of course, you can use whatever cabinets you want. You can have the cabinets changing per scene, but for me, I like the consistency of the same cabinet, and I really love the sound of this particular preset cabinets. And look, I've got a lot of third-party impulse responses, and I tried a truckload of them when I first got the Quad Cortex, but essentially at the end of the day, this factory cabinet sounded great for me, so I'm happy to use that. So that's how I'm currently using the Quad Cortex live. I can essentially get through a whole gig and pretty much just use that one preset, utilizing the 8 scenes and the different controls that I've got set up within it. There may be at times specific songs where I may need to create a song-specific preset, but at the moment, there's not too many songs that I do that can't be covered within one of those 8 scenes and the different variations of either the controllers or different pickup configurations on the actual guitar. Now, the Quad Cortex is by no means perfect yet. I think there's still some work to be done in terms of some of the features that are available. And the first one to me is the modulation tap tempo. Currently, you can assign tap tempo to the delay repeats, but it cannot be assigned to modulation rate. And by that I mean chorus, flanger, phaser, univibe, rotary effects. Really, you should be able to sync the modulation of those effects utilizing the tap tempo. And pretty much every multi-effects processor on the planet can do it. So for some reason, Neural DSP have not recognize the importance of this particular feature. I really hope that they do add it sooner than later. It's something that I have always used a lot, and it would be greatly appreciated in the Quad Cortex for me. Secondly is, currently at the time of this video, the effects assignments cannot be set independently per scene. And by that I mean, if I was to set a reverb and a delay on, say, my clean tone, and I'm using the same reverb and delay on another scene, the assignments that I've got set will also apply to that scene. So it would be very flexible to be able to set different effects assignments on a scene basis. So that's something that I think would really enhance the functionality and the flexibility of the actual pedal itself. And third, a feature that I think would be greatly appreciated by a lot of users is to have more flexibility in what is programmed on each button. So to give an example, if I was in my distorted tone here, at the moment when I want to go to my lead tone, I have to press forward on the expression pedal, which is cool, but it would be great if the buttons on the actual pedal itself allowed you to morph between two preset or two scene values, similar to say the Kempers that allow you to morph between different effects settings, or the Axe effects that allow you to toggle between scenes, particularly in scene 1 and 2. It would be good if I was to have my rhythm tone on a pedal, and then when I hit that same pedal a second time, it then goes to the alternate scene. So therefore, I wouldn't have to be tap dancing back and forward. I could just basically toggle between the same scene, which would then basically free up assignments for other things. And lastly, I feel that some of the effects could still benefit from some work, a little bit of enhancement. In particular for me, the choruses are a little bit lackluster. There are many multi-effects with choruses that are a lot more lush and beautiful sounding than what's currently in the Quad Cortex. So that's one that personally I feel, your mileage may vary. You may be quite happy with the chorus the way it is. It's by no means broken. It just, for me, isn't as lush as what I've come to know many choruses to be. So that's a summary of how I'm currently using the Quad Cortex. I hope that maybe I've opened up some ideas for you in utilising yours. I hope to do a bit of a deep dive on how I'm currently using controllers and how the auto engage function works within the wah and pitch blocks. But for now, if you've enjoyed this video, I hope you would consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so that you get updates of future videos, and I will catch you later.